Right, I don't think, oh, it is working. I was shouting then, thinking the microphone wasn't working. Fiona, come back on stage, because we want you on this panel as well. Could I invite the panel up, please? We've got people from trucks, we've got cars, we've got charging infrastructure, and Fiona, by sheer coincidence, I'm on LinkedIn as well. So if you could all get, no, you don't need to get your phones out again. I'm just very impressed by Fiona's business, Octopus. I'm sure most of you know who Octopus Energy are, but they've got their tentacles in, you have to be really careful when you say that, they've got their tentacles in so many parts of the industry, haven't you now? Batteries, EVs, charging, all of that stuff. So, yes, right, we're going to be talking about, a little bit picking up on your theme, where are we now? We're in the confidence of EVs, and we're going to talk about it in the European perspective. Because despite the fact we're here in the UK, and we all know what happened a couple of years ago, we do feel, and we are part of Europe. Can I just say that to my European friends? Do you still like us? Can I check that?
I would say yes.
Oh, good. There's a relief. So what I'd like to do, first of all, is to whiz down the panel. Because you know how you can sit on a panel and it's going to be like 10 minutes before you even get to say anything. And you think, you know, I feel like a bit like a spare part. So I'd like to go from this end all the way down the end to say, number one, who you are. Say who you are and what you do, and then give me a score of 1 to 10 where you think we are with EV confidence. If 10 is super confident and 1 is it's not going to happen, it's all a big dream. So, yes, kick off.
Thanks. I'm Gustaf Sundell. I'm from Scania. I'm part of our executive board, and I'm heading up what we call Ventures in New Business. I would say on EV confidence, if you take us as a producer, I mean, we're on a 10. I mean, we're betting the company basically on that shift. If you take then the carriers today, and roughly 70% of European carriers are small to medium sized, and for them the confidence level is much lower.
Okay.
It's a huge risk, so 3.
Okay, nice and succinct. Kajsa,
yes.
Give us who you are and your score, please.
All right. My name is Kajsa Ivansson Sognefur, and I'm the head of power for the car company NIO. And if I would rate, I would say 6 towards 7 in EV confidence.
Nice. Rob.
Yeah, hello everybody. My name's Rob Simister, and I'm the Director of Operations, Fleet Operations for Centrica. If you don't know who Centrica are, British Gas is one of our companies. Well, I'm going to use a football analogy. There's a football competition going on apparently, and it's currently a game of 2 halves. So when it comes to company cars, then I'm a 9 or a 10. When it comes to commercial vehicles, I'm going to say 5 or 6.
Ooh, nice. Okay, Steve.
Morning, everyone. Steve Smith. So I'm Group Head of Strategy at National Grid, and I also head up our Corporate Venture Capital Fund, National Grid Partners. So we're predominantly grid infrastructure, UK and US. So I'd say, as somebody who sort of bought the first electric vehicle 6 years ago, I'd sort of say I'm sort of 6.5, 7 on the sort of residential fleet. So I'd be up at 9, 10 with Rob. I can't really speak for Europe because we don't operate there, so I'll leave that to others.
Okay, right. Patrick. You've got a big fleet, haven't you? You've got a big fleet of electric vehicles, so...
Well, no, we have a big fleet. They're not yet electrified. No,
okay.
That probably gives the answer in itself, actually. Yeah, Patrick Dunne. I'm a Group Property Procurement Director of Sainsbury's, the best UK supermarket in the UK.
Others are available, by the way.
I also lead a new venture called Smart Charge, which we'll talk a little about later. But I would say, for consumers in the UK, I would say a 5. I'd say for commercial fleet owners, I would say a 4, maybe even a 3. And we can talk a little bit about why that is, maybe throughout the conversation.
Okay, great. Fiona, your go.
I mean, you probably can guess. So for those that are new, Fiona, I'm the CEO for Octopus EV. I mean, I'm all in. It's happening. It's just a matter of time.
Yeah, but what's your number?
10.
Oh, right, okay, yeah, I kind of knew that. Right, so, because it's early in the morning, and can I just congratulate you all for getting here on time? Because I know it's always tricky, coming to this place particularly, because you've got to get on this train and that car and this boat and all the rest of it, and then walk all the way around here, and then you come in and walk all the way. It's a journey, so well done. So I'm going to ask you all to put your hands up. Put your hands up if you are at 10 in your level of confidence for the adoption of EVs in the European perspective. I've got a gentleman there, that's one, a couple more, two, a few. Okay, 9, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, I'm going to put my glasses on for these last few, 3, 2, 1. Ah, okay. Well, I suppose you have come to move, so I didn't really expect too many people in that last sort of 3 groups. Okay, that's really interesting, listening to all of your various scores. And what I found particularly interesting there was the difference between retail and cars and vans and trucks. I'm quite fascinated about that. So can you expand a little bit? What was your number again then? Because I forgot to put your number down.
I said, I mean, as a producer, as a company,
Yeah.
10. Is this going to happen? Is this going to be good? Yes, 10.
Okay.
If you look into the fleet owners, and specifically the small fleet owners,
Yeah.
today, I was actually saying a 3. So if you're listening to the customers out in the European markets you're going through, then I believe that, and that is for us, I mean, that is what we're working with. That's for us to bring up, right? So
Yeah.
I mean, I work with the Ventures in New Business, and we have a venture here today. I see the Juna team over there. I mean, what they're doing is they're bringing that 3 up to a level where where is it now, Johan Matteo? It's 8, 9, something like that. So we're finding business model to de-risk that. But if
Yeah.
you would take the average, because of the small fleets that we have out in the market, then the confidence level is something we have to work with. Because
Yeah.
we need that shift to happen.
Can I just check something with you? Because I'm not going to go through my career. God, it would be really boring. But I did start my career in the automotive industry at Saab. And Saab, was that Saab part of Scania?
Used to be, yes.
Yeah, used to be. Can you bring it back? Because that would be a really, really cool electric car, a Saab.
They're beautiful.
Yeah. Okay, but there's no plans for that.
It's not in the cards right now. It's not in the cards now, no.
Okay.
Sure.
Let's jump over there then, I think, to Patrick. Patrick, when you talked about, I mistakenly thought all of your fleet was now electric. That's just me kind of, what's that term where you kind of impose your thoughts on somebody? I can't remember what it's called. Anyway.
No, our ambition will be net zero in our own operations in Sainsbury's by 2035. But as I was talking earlier before we joined, it's the total cost of ownership of converting a fleet today is not yet where it needs to be.
Yeah.
And the ability to operationalize that fleet across the UK, heavy goods vehicles at the moment, nigh impossible to run a supermarket business on an electric fleet. Light commercial vehicles, more possible, more probable, and so we're starting already to electrify our grocery online fleet. We have some of our supermarkets that already have dedicated electric fleets. We also own the Argos business, which has a large fleet, and probably about 50% of that fleet we will start to electrify around about 2027, because the use case for electric vehicles at the moment doesn't allow our business to operate on totally electric because of the payloads and the distance traveled in a day. Coupled then with infrastructure. If you just focus on infrastructure, the ability to get a HGV out to its destination, multiple destinations and back again is not yet 100% assured. And until we can have more confidence in that, then it's foolish of us to put our business at risk to not get that fresh food on the shelves every day with guaranteed delivery. So it's coming. To your point, you know, the question for me is EV the future? I'm at 12, I'm all in. But the consumer confidence and commercial confidence today is not yet there. And our job is to constantly, innovate, constantly lay down infrastructure for consumers. Our Smart Charge business is doing that. We'll also use that business to help electrify our light commercial vehicles as well. But it's about confidence in the infrastructure and the ability to give a total cost of ownership that works for the business.
Yeah. You covered an awful lot there. We'll jump into some of those things again there. Gustaf, you want to say something?
I think Patrick just made such a good point on the TCO, because it's all, when you mean it's a business-to-business setup, right? We grow with profitable customers, but we're utterly convinced that we can beat TCO on diesel. And of course, it's also now with the electric, it's a full solution. So it's also the charging, the cost of the energy, the reliability, the uptime, so that you can secure revenues. So that is, I mean, last week we launched a company called Irinian, where we focus on depot and destination charging. And what we see what we can do with that kind of efforts is really to bring up confidence in the TCO, because that is going to be key for adoption.
Kajsa, you scored, I made a note of all the scores, by the way, so I'm going to come back to haunt you. You said 6 or 7. I'm very interested in something. You work for NIO, you have for some time. NIO is very impressively building out thousands of battery switch stations in China. It now operates in Germany, it operates in Norway, it operates a couple of other European countries.
Sweden, Netherlands.
Yeah,
Denmark.
so when you gave your score about confidence, and the question was confidence in EV in Europe, is that just Europe, or are you bringing into your mind what's going on with NIO in China in your answer?
Well, in my answer, it was considering Europe. If I would talk to a general person, when you talk with partners, friends, you know, a lot of them are driving EVs already, but the others are in my next car will be an EV, or these are my concerns. So from our perspective, from NIO, it's like, what are the concerns and how can we help you? Is it the cost, or is it the range? Is it, I'm waiting for this new technology? So from our perspective with battery swapping, as we do, then let's make it flexible. So we'll help you with your doubts. And for instance, when we started with battery swapping in China, we have 2 different sizes of batteries. At that time, half of the users would choose the 75 kilowatt hour battery, and half of them would choose 100. Now, with the broad network, 95% would choose the smaller battery, because then they pay less cost. But when they go on the holidays, when they're going to travel a long range, then they can just do a flexible upgrade. So have the flexibility for the users, and when the new technology comes with new battery technology, then they can also upgrade to that battery. So when there's a doubt, let's talk to our consumers, our users. What are your doubts and how can we help you? And that's what we are doing, making it more flexible and more approachable.
Right, so that flexibility, just to be clear in it, and tell me if I'm wrong, but people don't buy the battery. It's not your battery.
No, you lease the battery.
Right, okay.
It's leasing.
And that's how you can swap it, and it doesn't matter, there's none of this, because of course you've heard of Better Place, I imagine, haven't you?
I have.
Yeah,
yes.
I thought so. Just out of interest, hands up if you've heard of Better Place, a company that did battery swap. A small number of you. I'm not pitching this against you because they're not around anymore, but just if you get time at some point, just Google Better Place or look on YouTube and look at what this company back in 2007 were doing in Denmark and Israel and a couple of other places. You might be surprised, but I'm not saying it wasn't your idea. I'm not being rude, Kajsa. No, all right. Rob, when we talk about confidence in EVs, that can either be a concept, nebulous concepts, an opinion, or it can be predicated on facts, on knowledge and experience. Centrica have run quite a number of electric vehicles for 3 years, 4 years now?
2 years, yeah. Well, so the main investment was about 2 years ago.
Okay.
So we've been running approximately 2,500 LCVs with no depots. So a return-to-home fleet. We're probably the biggest return-to-home charging fleet in the UK. So we've had a fair bit of experience of the reality, and I think that's something which let me be absolutely clear, as fleet director within Centrica, a net zero solution is absolutely where we're going to get to, and battery electric vehicles will absolutely be part of the mix, a big part of the mix. I think there also needs to be, particularly when it comes to commercials, other options investigated and backed. We shouldn't have a one-horse race. And I think some of that is we've got a little bit of a challenge with a panacea problem in that, there's one truth to rule them all, and that's battery electric. And I think we've got to be careful that we don't let that evangelism actually overcome some of the challenges we've got. The point of a problem is it's a solution in disguise, right? So there's always going to be mitigations, and there's going to be things that can be done, and it obviously depends on your workload. And I'm focusing particularly on commercial vehicles here.
Yeah.
But I think my company car fleet, 80% of my company cars are battery electric. We don't offer an alternative. If you want a company car within Centrica, it's battery electric or nothing. And by the end of 2025, we'll be 100% company cars battery electric.
Right.
I have very little issues with battery electric company cars. When it comes to the commercial function, there are a lot of issues that you need to be cognizant of when you're rolling out a battery electric commercial fleet. The biggest one is around productivity. And obviously it depends on your workload, depends on what you do as a business. We've got 8,000 commercial vehicles in the UK. And if I lose an hour a day because I have to charge publicly, then that costs me a lot of money in downtime. So it's something we have to think about, how we mitigate that, how we reduce that, how we change working practices, how we need to look at systems within our businesses to manage this transition to a net zero future. Does that make sense? Answer your question?
Yeah, Rob, that was great. And I've nearly interrupted you, and I mustn't do that because it's a bad habit I have. But when you said, when a member of staff, when someone in the team asks, what company car can I have, it's only an electric.
Yeah.
Can I just ask you, please, can we give a round of applause to that company, to Rob, for that answer? Thank you, Rob. Do you know, if everybody did that, then the momentum towards EV, the answer to this question, where is EV confidence, would be so much higher because people can only be what they see, if you know what I mean. And whether in commercial fleets, whether it's buses, taxis, vans, trucks, whatever, if that's what people see, then they know that's what they can be. So,
well, thanks for that. Also, that's the first time on a panel I've ever been applauded. It's usually booed.
Yeah.
So thanks for that, everybody. Appreciate that.
Okay, well, you owe me £1, all right, for that.
Done.
So we can settle up later. Fiona, like I said, your tentacles are all over the place now as Octopus Energy. Is the boss now Lord or Sir or something? Did he get knighted the other day?
He got a CBE. Yeah.
Wow, nice.
In the honours list.
Yeah, see. So, well, that's because, and this is where I'm really interested in something. I know the representation, we're going to come to National Grid in a moment. How is the energy industry really now changing and connecting with the mobility industry? You alluded to it in your opening kind of comments about, the oil industry and change and all this stuff. But are they really getting it together now?
Yes, but I think it's early stages. I think we're still dating, right? I think there's this early stages of the energy sector and the car sector being this could be interesting. There could be extra value here. We're not quite sure how it works. Energy sector, are you ready? Maybe National Grid can pick up on those answers, but it's energy sector, are you ready to receive all this battery storage? And then the car sector's we need to develop some tech. We're just figuring out what's on the car, what's going to go into charge points, and there's this beautiful kind of innovation early stage part that we're at right now, where we're how can it work? And we're problem solving, and we're finding solutions, and we're trying it. So you'll be aware, we ran 130 cars on a power loop project, which is doing V2G, vehicle to grid, here in the UK, where we're using those cars to take energy off the grid into the car, and then at peak times giving it back to the grid again, so that we can support the grid and help smooth that and reduce the cost of the infrastructure and reduce the energy generation we need. Super exciting. In addition to that, we work with National Grid, and we work with some of the local grid operators as well, particularly UK power networks in that case. But these cars became the first electric cars to participate in the balancing mechanism, in the way in which we balance the UK energy system. It's super exciting. It's first stages, and there's so much opportunity and so much value to come.
Yeah. Can I nearly did the interrupting thing again there, but when you were describing that, I might have dreamt this somewhere. Is there a point or a tariff at some point where you can you get paid for taking electricity? Is that right? Did I make that up?
We do now have the Power Pack tariff, where the Power Pack tariff is a vehicle to grid tariff here in the UK, and you can drive for free, so free energy for your car. And we also have an agile...
Well, how does that work? Sorry, how does that... I don't get how that works. How does that work?
Because we can balance and charge up your car at times when it works, and we can use that battery to create value back for the energy system so that we can give you that energy for free.
Are you in violent agreement,
I'm
Rob?
just duty-bound contractually to say that there are other energy companies are available. So all respect to Fiona, British Gas Energy also does very similar stuff, similar tariffs, and I also have a group that do the V2G, and they're working on that. So, but the thrust, Fiona, is absolutely spot on. It's going to be an important part of the mix.
Yeah, Steve, I was coming to you.
Yeah, I was just going to say, just to help with that, because I think there's a grid aspect to that. So, look, we're in the process. We've got this big thing, the Great Grid Upgrade. So, building huge amount of transmission and distribution. But at the moment, a lot of the wind farms we've connected are in the north of the country, and most of the demand's in the south. So, sadly, there are many periods overnight when we're having to pay wind farms to shut down because we simply can't either move the power or there isn't demand. Hence, Octopus being able to say to us, or British Gas being able to say to us, we'll charge cars. That's how you get to free electricity, because otherwise the wind would just, we just shut the wind farms down.
Right. I mean, maybe this is too commercial a question, but how much do you have to pay them then to...
Well, at the moment, sadly, and this is a sister company of ours, Electricity System Operator, that's being spun out and taken on by the government. I mean, they're spending just shy of £4 billion a year at the moment to balance the system. So, that's why we've got to build all this infrastructure, because that's mad. I mean, the cost of the infrastructure at the moment is only £2 billion, but it does create opportunities, and they'll be there into the future. So, the way we talk about it, at the moment, our grids are designed for these big peaks. If we try to electrify heat and transport and built grids the way we've done them historically, you'd probably need a grid 4 times the size it is today, which would just be mad, and we'd never be allowed to build it. If we do the clever things with Octopus, with British Gas, and flatten that load, you're probably looking at a grid only twice the size, and that would then take all the load that we currently use, hydrocarbons for. So that's the opportunity if we get it right, and that involves both commercial users and fleet users and domestic users, charging at periods, that are helpful.
And can I ask this question? Because if you think of these two industries, let's call it mobility industry and energy industry, they're both over 100 years old, and neither of them have really changed. We still do that thing called suck, squeeze, bang, and blow. It's not the party later on afterwards. This is the combustion engine process. And you think it's crazy that that's still the technology we use today. And in the same way, and tell me if I'm wrong, the energy system, the grid, the way we produce energy and move it, is pretty much the same as what Thomas Edison, Mr. Westinghouse, and Nikola Tesla constructed and designed well over 100 years ago. Is that correct? And some of the equipment, some of the material we use on the transmission lines, that hasn't changed in decades.
So a couple of quick points on that. I think in the UK it is really, really different. I've been around in this industry for 30 years. I mean, I can remember 10, 15 years ago, and I wasn't at National Grid, people at National Grid saying, sucking of teeth, going, we just don't know how you'd operate a system with, 50, 60% renewables. We've had days this year when renewables has been, 80% of the generation on, and I can go to our control room and they're just sitting there saying, yep, no problem. So there has been that massive shift in mindset, which is you've now got people completely comfortable with the idea of a completely renewables-based system. On the technology, so I do run National Grid Partners, which is our innovation arm, and we had a big event yesterday. That technology is shifting rapidly, both on the hardware side and the software side. There are next generation conductors that we'll put on our pylons that allow us to have 2 to 3 times the capacity we have today. Ton of stuff on software. I mean, I could bore you all for hours on it, but go to our website. There's a huge amount we're investing in. So the technology of grids is changing spectacularly at the moment.
Well, Kajsa, now I know you're not in China, and I do happen to know the guy that does your, NIO Power, Fei Shen, I think he's called.
Yes.
Someone told me you're the Fei Shen of Europe, and he's like, that's a big thing to live up to. So NIO worked with, what is it called, China State Grid and China Southern Grid in China to build this relationship, this two-way relationship. Listening to what you're hearing from some of the other panelists, is this what you envisage for NIO here?
I mean, yes, since I represent Europe, we have a lot of our technology tested in China, but working with clean energy, wind, all of this, taking this energy I think what you asked from the beginning, can we have the EV cars and the energy, are they connected together? And yes, very much. That's my title, Head of Power. I work for a car company, but I am responsible for the power.
Right.
And yes, how can we benefit both the cars? We have the batteries in the cars. We can ask the customers, can you charge at this period because you will help balancing the system? But also we have our battery swap stations. We have lots of batteries there, and there we can decide. So we do several different grid services where we earn revenue from balancing the grid. So we help the grid, we earn revenue, and we can pay the OPEX costs. So we want to invest more stations, more battery swap stations, and also reduce the cost for the customers, like you said. If I'm driving around Europe and I can get my energy for free all the time, I would be very happy, of course. That will be a main driver for many people to start driving EVs. So what I wanted to say, yes, it's the old system since many years ago, but what we have is a lot of new software. In our stations, they can react within I think 1 second. So when there's an unbalance in the grid, the stations will react within 1 second and start to either charge the battery or stop charging the batteries to balance it. So the new technology we have in the cars, in storages, in the system in total. So let's not just build out a whole lot of new cables in the ground or in the air. Let's look at the software we have and let's benefit the technology. And what we say, it's pilot projects. Yes, we have several pilot projects, but we are also fully operational. We're past the pilot projects. We're doing it. We're earning revenue, and it's so easy to do it because you don't have to invest that much extra.
Yeah.
It's just some digital development that is needed.
Right. Well said. And I think in terms of building confidence in EV, when you hear Kajsa and everyone else on the panel explaining the innovation, the technology, the progress, the connectivity between energy and mobility, it's profound. And it's not that this is anti-oil and gas. It's not even that it's about tackling climate change, although it is. It's just about updating technology. It's taking these 100-year-old, legacy industries and rebooting them. Put everything else to one side. It's just, let's get things. Do you have Scania power? Is there such a person that heads up Scania power? Because given how important the energy, the fuel, call it the same thing, is, and the cost of all of that, do you have someone called? Have you got a Kajsa at Scania?
Yeah, we have a Kajsa. Actually, his name is Jonas, heading up our energy and infrastructure sector in my department. And I mean, it's great listening to this because if you go back some 10 years, we were talking about grid capacity going to be this major constraint in able to have heavy vehicles on the road, and it's still going to be a constraint. But the opportunities around it and the innovations that we see around it are really, really encouraging. So for us, of course, when we're setting up depot charging stations and so forth, having battery storage in them, having that opportunity of also being a part of sort of going towards the grid with it, it's a huge opportunity.
Yeah. Now, like I said right at the beginning, when you answered, and some of the responses we got from our wonderful audience, the difference between retail or passenger car and fleet drivers and all the rest of it, I'd be very interested, really, both from Patrick and from Rob, to understand whatever your corporate strategy is, whatever is being said in the boardroom or by the shareholders, or you write in your nice shareholder report, what about the end user, the driver of that van, of that truck, of whatever? Patrick, what's your sense of how engaged have we got in giving those people confidence over and above anyone else?
Well, it's clear from listening to the panel there's a bright future in the medium to long term. In the short term, it's getting back to basics. It's simplicity. They want some simple charging. They want reliable charging. And for those with mobility issues, they want accessible charging. And then we'll all hear the phrase, maybe it'll die someday, but range anxiety is a #1 challenge of consumers. We did a survey, and 83% of Sainsbury's customers said the inability to adopt an EV is due to range anxiety, both in the urban cycle, but in the long-term domestic. And domestic charging definitely has a role to play. But I think consumers want it to be part of their daily life, whether they charge at home or they charge going to the supermarket. What they don't want is something that distracts from the core day-to-day living that they do.
Yeah.
And so I'm not yet convinced personally that many of the futuristic roles of batteries in cars, a car is there for mobility.
Yep.
And yes, it can then be used to give back power to the grid and stuff, but the core purpose is I want my car to be available to me when I need to go short and medium long-term journeys. So consumers, I think, are improving, and in our own little way in the UK, laying down reliable infrastructure right across the UK is what's making a difference, and we are seeing 3 to 5% growth per week in all of our sites as consumers become aware of it, use it in their everyday life, and I think for the UK consumer, the right infrastructure, affordable vehicles that are reliable as well, is what will make the difference. Coupled with government policy that supports that.
Rob, so you've got all of these vehicles with all of these drivers. You've had them for a couple of years at least. I was intrigued by something you said earlier. They all take them home. How many of the drivers that take them home can charge at home, and how many of them can't? And the ones that can't, what do they do?
This is where I reach for the swear box. So it's a challenge because, indeed, I think part of the challenge is that not all of our colleagues out there in the field have a driveway.
Yeah.
The majority of my engineers don't have a driveway, so we're relying on public charging, and that section of our renewal of fleet going forward. Though they are mainly in ICE vehicles, because that's
79 pence a kilowatt hour isn't very attractive to charge, is it?
Well, see, this is the mistake. So the kilowatt hour is clearly a material consideration, but it's not the biggest cost for me. And look, this varies across your businesses depending on what your workload is, what you do as a function when it comes to commercial vehicles. But the kilowatt rate isn't the big cost, although it is material. The big cost for me is productivity loss. So I've got a reactive business. We fix boilers, we install heat pumps, we fit chargers, etc., etc. We do commercial buildings of battery farms and wind farms and everything else. We're a big organisation. If my engineers have to stop to charge during the day, then that has to be accommodated. That has to be mitigated going forward. We've got to find solutions to reduce that to the minimum, and that's going to be a combination of better infrastructure, better technology, better services and systems back in the mothership. All these things take time and have got to be really thought about. It's a transformational change in how we operate as a business, and everybody will have to accommodate that. And I should say that if I don't know whether anybody else is a politics nerd like me, but if you look at...
Don't mention politics, you're not allowed to at the moment.
I'm going to say, if you look at some of the manifestos, for instance, whatever flavour you support, but it looks like potentially there could be a Labour government, and they're
really?
they're committed in their manifesto to bring the target for sale of diesels and petrols to 2030. So that gives us about 5.5 years to get our ducks in a row as businesses, as users, and that should focus your minds because there's a lot to do. So the one passage shot I would say, because I don't know whether we're going to have masses of time left, but one of the pieces of advice, because I guess we're all here to learn and listen, and me too, but one of the things I would say is when it comes to the commercial vehicle sector, if you have a fleet of vehicles, my one piece of advice to you is get the hearts and minds of your colleagues on board first, right?
Yeah.
Do as much as you can to help bring their hearts and minds to the party that you're trying to deliver.
I completely echo that. I've had that experience myself, and I won't go into that. 2 quick points, and then I would like to come with the final questions to wrap up. Gustaf first, and then Fiona.
I was just triggered by the question around the drivers. Of course, we love our drivers, and the feedback that we're getting from the drivers of these electric trucks that we have now is just magic. I met with a truck driver in Copenhagen, and she was driving refuse trucks. And she said not only was a great drive, but also the fact that she was really feeling proud that she was being a part of creating the kind of city she wanted to see. Copenhagen in this case.
Nice.
Quiet, environmentally friendly.
And do you capture things like that? Do you make little videos of that without making it too kind of greenwashy? I'm not saying you're greenwashing, but that shows people this is a normal driver, this is the normal life, this is what they're thinking. Do you feed that out to other people?
when you say it that way, we should probably do it more, right?
Okay.
Because it's quite touching when you meet up with them, you really get a good feel for how much it means for them.
Yeah,
and
that's what
pride they take in being able to be a part of a good, the transition they want to see.
Yeah, and to Rob's point, Patrick too, if the driver of the vehicle, isn't engaged, it's getting in the way of things. I'm not being unkind, because I've had this experience. They will find a way to bugger it up. They will make sure it doesn't work. They are the number one important person, the person holding the steering wheel. Fiona, you want to say something?
Yeah, I was going to pick up on the public charging point and the cost per kilowatt hour for public charging. We have a public charging app, Electroverse. It has integrated across almost 90%, I think, of UK charge points, 700,000 charge points across Europe. And I've had this hypothesis for a while, right, which is, when you were driving a nice car, maybe some of you still are, and when you're filling up, you don't fill up that much on a motorway service station because it's a little bit more expensive than one local to you. So you top up a little bit if you have to, and then you get to the local one, which is much cheaper. In the EV charging world, this is so much more extreme. The rapid charging is 10 times more expensive than if you could do it on your driveway, but also 4 times more expensive than curbside charging, a lot of curbside charging. So people can use lampposts, or local authorities are rolling out other charge points, or your work might be offering it as well. So there's all these other locations with slower charging, which is better use for the infrastructure, and rapid charging is always going to be more expensive, right? It's higher cost for the grid connection, it's higher cost to maintain it, it's higher cost tech. The whole thing is higher cost. So actually I think as drivers are going to optimize to use lower cost because we like lower cost things. And it is also convenient because we can do it overnight. So I thought it was really interesting when I looked at the data recently from Electroverse, from this public charging app. 73% of the charges, the uses of the network, in that time period I was looking at were from 22 kilowatt chargers and below. So over 70% of the charge cases were slower charges. They weren't on the rapid network.
Right.
There was only 27% that were on this rapid network. So actually I think low cost affordable charging for public charging as well as at home is just going to dominate over time. And then when people are on longer journeys and you want convenience, then you're going to pay, and you're going to pay for really, really fast, because then you're not going to want to hang around. Or you're going to do it like I do when my kids eat dinner. But, I do think there's people automatically are thinking public charging is this really expensive, fast charging, rapid charging. I just don't think that's the case.
No, I think that's a very good point, the location of the chargers. And I think, we are still living this experience. We're in the foothills, if you like, of some of this change. But we've only got a couple of minutes, so I just want to finish on a general question. Just jump in and whatever you're saying, please be as succinct as you can. So if we look at TCO, total cost of ownership, and look at getting that to be price parity with the current diesel and petrol offer for cars, etc. What's the equation for that? When are we going to get to that? When do you think?
Yeah.
Bob?
So quickly, when it comes to cars, not a big issue for me. So I'll talk about commercials. Commercial home charged van, cost parity now. Public charge van, work to do.
Wow. Well, anyone?
It's starting already now. It's application per application. We believe we're going to be selling 50% electric in Europe 2030, and that's going to be driven by TCO parity.
Right. Yeah. Steve?
I mean, I think we can get the cost of energy down, particularly in the UK. It's very, very high at the moment because we're, still linked to gas. So more renewables, but also we can get the cost of infrastructure down. I mean, it's very, very simple. If we put 4 times as much power through a network that's twice the size, you've halved the cost.
Oh, I like that. An equation. First thing in the morning, an equation. Can you say that again? I quite like.
So if you manage to put 4 times the electrons across our network and it's twice the size, then you've halved the cost.
Oh, I like that. Would it be weird if I said that's sexy? Does that sound a bit weird? It does, doesn't it? It does sound weird. But I'm a bit odd, so, there you are. Well, I think to finish a panel on an equation is a pretty neat way. So, Steve, I really want to thank you for that. Can I ask you to give this wonderful group of people, who, by the way, and I'm conscious we didn't do audience Q&A, will be readily available over the side of the stage there any time during the show, whatever. So grab them if you want to follow up on some stuff. But for the moment, can we please give them our appreciation? Thank you.